Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Aesthetic and Wellness Edge. I'm your host, Bethany Gifford, owner of New Era Intel, where we help practices scale smarter, not harder. Today's episode dives into a husband and wife duo who are blending science, innovation, and a true level of genuine care to change the way that we think about health and wellness. But first, a word from our sponsor.
This episode is brought to you by New Era Intel. At New Era Intel, we help medical spas, dermatology clinics, and plastic surgery practices who are struggling with inconsistent patient retention, underutilized CRM systems, and manual systems that hold back your clinic's growth potential so they can finally increase quality repeat bookings, streamline operations with AI automation, and grow predictable monthly revenue with the right systems and strategy. They're able to create a premium, seamless patient experience while freeing up their team to focus on what they do best. If you would like to take your business to the next level, head over to neweraintel.com to get started.
My guests today are Chip and Cindy Paul, the powerhouse team behind Neighborly Wellness and TrueMedX. Chip is a researcher and formulator known for his patents and deep expertise in the endocannabinoid system, natural products, and now peptides and collagen research. Cindy brings heart-centered care from her background in hospice and home health, shaping the philosophy that blends compassion with science. Together, they're pioneering the use of bioresonance technology, AI-driven data, and natural formulations to get to the root cause of the disease. They're expanding their reach with mobile clinics, international distribution, and licensing opportunities for practices ready to embrace the holistic solutions. Chip and Cindy, welcome to the show.
Welcome,
Hi,
Bethany.
Bethany. Thank you.
Thank you for having us, Bethany.
Absolutely. Well, you guys have a true unique situation here, and I would love to kind of get to the origin of it. What was your personal experience that kind of pushed you both towards holistic care and natural formulations? And Chip, we'll start with you.
Oh, it's definitely was kind of Cindy and I both our personal experience really with pain, but more around Cindy's experience. And so we were not looking forward, let's say, to taking opiates and things like that. We knew that those were likely in our future. And so Cindy had a lot of pain and we were able to address her pain naturally, which kind of got us started on our journey.
And Cindy, I mean, you had touched a little bit on your pain, going forward. How has the holistic care and natural formulations just kind of changed your way of thinking?
It was literally a game changer. Going into having this injury, I had a two-level cervical fusion. And so I've had two herniations in my cervical spine. And that, I will tell you, is the most painful thing I've ever experienced. And then when Chip was like, well, let's try these herbs. And I tried them and it really reduced the pain. And it really helped me understand that I don't need to depend on pharmaceuticals through this healing journey, which I did not want to take any pain pills because I'm scared of them. They cause
Yeah.
addiction and a myriad of other problems. So it was a huge game changer just in helping me to heal and to live a better life. And I'm far better for it.
That's awesome. I know, big pharma, man, they love to push all their new and latest non-tested things on us, and it's unfortunate how so many people can get hooked on things, and they just don't help.
Mhm.
They don't heal from the inside out. They just mask
Mhm.
what the issue is.
Exactly. You got to get to the root and help people be more preventative instead of symptom management.
Yeah, we work, kind of like a machine. I mean, you should be able to logically explain, let's say algorithmically or neurologically, if you want to look at it that way, what pain is, right? And you can do that through the endocannabinoid system. So the endocannabinoid system through omega-6 fats, through something called arachidonic acid, through something called prostaglandin, is directly responsible for pain. So its pain is caused by prostaglandin too. So if you can get in the middle of that process in some way, you can mitigate that pain. That's what NSAIDs do very unsafely, right? So they're inhibiting an enzyme in kind of an unsafe way. We look at the same mechanisms, but we're looking at using very safe natural products. So like for instance, CBDA from cannabis will do the actually is a better inhibitor of the COX enzyme system than any NSAID and is very safe and non-psychoactive and all that. So we try to use better solutions from nature to help you with.
That's amazing. And I know, Cindy, you had a background in hospice and home health care. How did that kind of shape the patient first approach at Neighborly?
That was eye-opening. You think that these kind of services are going to serve your family member well, or your mother, your grandma, whoever goes into those systems, they are at the mercy of their insurance and what the insurance will pay for, and you have no choice for your care. And so I just saw a big disconnect between ethical care and taking care of people, that ethics, those ethics were not there. And so I saw a lot of people in hospice that didn't need to be there. Honestly, they just needed more nutritional guidance, or they needed to be on less pharmaceuticals. They needed their care managed better. And so they got to a point where they became unmanageable for that position. So Medicare will pay for hospice. So let's just move them over there, collect those dollars. And that's what I saw too often. And so there was a lot of people that I took care of that honestly, I was just there to paint their fingernails or comb their hair or clean their house. I wasn't doing anything that medically helped them. And so, being an ethical person, I was like, I just can't be part of this. It's a problem. I don't want to be part of the problem. I want to be part of a solution. And so we had to break out of that.
I love it.
If,
I love it.
if if you're 85 years old, let's say, are you making old cells? No, you're not making old cells. You're still making the same robust, new, exciting cells that you were making when you were 20. So what happens to those cells, though, after you make them, that's what we become concerned with, because that's what changes between the time you're 20 and the time you're 85. And if you can take away those variables and those factors, that cell will stay new and fresh and, let's say, 20 years old a lot longer and provide you with a lot more, let's say, bang for the buck, right? So that's what we're trying to do, is understand kind of what gets in people's way and then get it out of the way, help you get it out of the way. And most of that are behavioral, natural, things we're doing to ourselves or things we just don't understand well.
Yeah. I mean, for our listeners that are kind of new to this whole scene, bioresonance, how would you kind of explain that, what it is and why it really matters with your practice?
Yeah. So bioresonance, we need, let's say in the natural products world, what happens a lot is natural products practitioners will say, hey, what's wrong with you? And we rely on you to understand what's wrong with you. That we've years and years of medical science has told us that's a bad idea. That's a bit, people, first of all, aren't honest, and then they don't really know, kind of what's going on with them. So you always need some method of evaluation. Now, the cool thing about bioresonance, and again, it was a little woohoo for me, it's an informational tool. It is not a diagnostic tool. But let me tell you kind of what happens in the endocannabinoid system and how cells work. And then, and this will explain bioresonance kind of through the process. So if you're a cell, let's say you're a heart cell, and a heart cell will have a frequency. So a heart cell builds ATP, and ATP is the gas of cells, but a heart cell will build ATP at a certain rate. Very interestingly, that's 1 to 2 orders of magnitude below the frequency of the sun. So that's a pretty significant amount of power. But he's building ATP at a rate. Now, if he's happy and he's got all the resources that he needs and he's feeling good about himself, he's going to raise his hand and he's going to say, hey, I want to join up with other heart cells and build you a heart collective. He raises his hand through the endocannabinoid system. He actually expresses something called a CB1 neuroreceptor and says, hey, I want to be a part of the collective. Okay. If he feels threatened, he's going to pull in that CB1 neuroreceptor and not respond to the collective anymore, or he's going to put out a bunch of antennas and try to hear what's going on. But one of those two things will happen. And that's the underlying pathology of all disease. If you look at obesity, what happens in obesity? Well, fat cells lose their connection to the collective. And what do you do if you lose your connection? You're going to store fat and run on glucose, which is trend toward type 2 diabetes. You can play that game with any cell. But basically, what bioresonance is doing is it is looking at those frequencies at the cellular level and then also at the collective level and in the system level. So that really helps us understand dysfunction and dysregulation informationally. It's not good enough to be a diagnostic yet. The other thing that's really interesting about it, though, is the frequency of a bug, of a pathogen, of a virus, bacteria, parasite, or fungus will be a lot faster than your normal tissue. So they're real easy to see in tissue system. So with this information, I mean, with this device, informationally, I can see if you have, staph in your heart wall or, fragilis in your rectum or, lactobacillus or whatever. But it allows us to see all different manner of pathogens that we get infected with. And so we have a lot different look, let's say, than the medical system has on malnutrition and infection. And if you look at the cause of disease, that's a big chunk of it. It's a great device and we can use it to follow up. It gives me a baseline so I know right where you're at. I've now built AI, let's say, tools around it where it can give me severity. So based on your level of the amount of stomach acid you're making, believe it or not, and gastritis, we can get a really good indication of if you're protecting yourself and the severity of your situation. So it's a great tool.
That's amazing. I know we
Yeah.
had talked a little bit about how AI had kind of played into that, to formulate some data and the combination of the two. I mean, gosh, you guys ran with it. I absolutely love that.
Yeah, you get so many data. I'll give you a great example of what this thing can do. So I already have a profile built on, let's say, one of our customers, and she's a real hard case. So she's not somebody who's stuck. She's got a lot of dysfunction. So she's got a lot of symptoms of what's going on. We've got a naturopath, myself, and another physician sort of involved in, let's say, her care. She's on hormone replacement supplements. She has, when she takes a blood test, no eosinophils, which means she's not really even marshaling much of a, defense against, let's say, Helmus. She's infected with Helmus, according to our machine.
Ugh.
She can't manage her blood pressure. She looks like she's retaining water. So she's a very complicated situation, but we just had her do a Dutch test, which is a hormone test to see what hormones are actually getting in her blood and what her hormone profile looks like. But that matched with the bioresonance, bam, you can just real quickly see she's got helminth infections. Those helminth impact certain enzyme expressions. Those enzyme expressions are exactly what are lit up in her Dutch test and why she's not basically building estrogen. So it was really cool to kind of connect all these dots. And, AI did that in 5 minutes versus me going and having to correlate all that data over hours and hours and hours, which was really cool.
Ah, that is amazing. That is absolutely amazing how you can see all those markers and data points. And, it's definitely taking the whole health and wellness moment to a cellular level, completely.
Yep.
And you had often kind of touched with your research the endocannabinoid system. Why is that such a key to health that many practitioners kind of overlook?
Yeah, well, first of all, they're not taught about it. And that's, number one. So if you don't get it in school, well, how could it be true and how could it be a thing, right? And so none of them get it, at least not at it. There's two universities that are teaching it at a master's level, major universities. University of Maryland, they were the first, and then University of Mississippi, which I helped build the curriculum at University of Mississippi. No one is yet teaching the endocannabinoid system at a PhD. Let me tell you what this system is. Again, it's a system that is the mammalian, minimally, it literally could be everything with a spine, but minimally, it's the mammalian master regulatory system. So if someone is a neurologist, well, guess what regulates your neurology? The endocannabinoid system. So how in the world could you come to any conclusions about neurology without understanding the system that regulates it. If you're an immunologist, again, the endocannabinoid system completely regulates your immune response down to how your blood cells are differentiated. So if you don't know about the system, how in the world can you make intelligent, conclusions and all that? So doctors and physicians are not taught on this system. Most of them, when you say endocannabinoid system, they say, okay, well, you're going to try to sell me a CBD product or cannabis now. They don't really recognize it as a true scientific system. And again, it's our master regulatory system. It's driven and fed by dietary fats, not marijuana, and in particular, omega 3 and omega 6 fats, which, if you don't eat in balance, you're going to be whacked out because your master regulatory system is whacked out. So it's coming. It's something that was, HHS will, that will be part of what HHS does, is likely retrain physicians and researchers on the endocannabinoid system. I am pushing as hard as I can push to get that done because it's so important. How can you do anything if you don't understand the system that regulates, let's say, your silo in science or medicine? It's insane.
Amen. Well, I can't wait for people to get more knowledgeable on that, and very appreciative that you're pushing that topic so people can learn. One of the main topics that's been going around a lot, med spas, integrated health, and of course, all over social media is collagen and peptides. Big hot topics right now. What are some of the misunderstandings about them, and how are you kind of combating that?
Cindy, you want to talk a little and then I'll jump in there?
Well, I was going to say that Chip's actually going to do one of his Chip Talks Health podcasts specifically on amino acids and what amino acids can turn. Collagen is a blend of amino acids. And so people sometimes think you have to take a collagen supplement. Well, it's just a blend of amino acids to achieve that collagen. But I'll let Chip speak to the science behind that.
Yeah, so collagen is a really interesting thing. So first of all, if you're putting collagen on your skin, it does have some benefit, but you're not going to absorb that as collagen. It's going to be more of a barrier and surface thing. It's going to be kind of a good moisture, barrier or something like that. But you're not going to, if you're trying to get collagen, let's say, into your skin, you're not going to do it with a topical application. Now, when you eat collagen, this happens with any protein, and I'll talk about a special one called BPC 157 in a second. But this happens with any protein. So when you eat a protein, that protein you don't absorb that protein whole. Protein is nothing more than a string of amino acids. And so collagen is just a string of amino acids. And all of those amino acids get cut up down to individual or di or tripeptide chains in your gut. And that's part of what your gut does. So collagen, when you eat it, you're going to break it down into the individual amino acids, with some exceptions of di and tripeptides, which are useful. And I can't get into too much of that because it's intellectual property and I can't publicly talk about it. But let's just say there's some useful stuff that happens there. But you have to understand the mechanisms and you have to understand what's going on. So some of those di and tripeptides will become signaling molecules, and that is what is important. What I started with, there's some interesting things as far as skin absorption with those guys that are also super interesting, let's just say. Now, when you have a molecule like BPC 157, this is fascinating. And this just sort of proves, that there's, let's say, more to some of these amino acid repeats than we think. But BPC 157 is a 15 amino acid long chain. I can feed you a gram of BPC 157 and you're going to have profound actions. I can measure, repeats in your blood. I can see the effects in your joints and all those type things with a gram. Now I can feed you a gram of each of the amino acids that are in BPC 157 and you will not have the same result. You'll have a beneficial result, but it will not be the same as feeding you BPC 157. So there's something that happens, and again, we know what this is. I just wrote for intellectual property on it, but let's just say there is something that happens in collagen, in casein, which is milk protein, in, let's say other semiglutides and things like that, that are really important as to signaling that we think we've cracked. So we'll see.
Awesome. I know. That's a popular peptide that I know a lot of places are carrying, so I know that's, the science behind it is incredible.
Yeah, and without getting into too much, where we're going next is, let's say you have absorption issues and some things that I may or may not be able to control around your infection. So, if someone's infected with parasites, they're going to have terrain issues in their gut where they're going to be not absorbed the way that they should. If they're infected with pylori or SIBO, it's going to be way worse.
Yeah.
So, we're piping around that. So what can we give you that you don't have to absorb as a, let's say, a master precursor that we can kind of pipe around those absorption issues and either go in blood or, go through absorptive, but something that you'll definitely absorb. So we're to the point now where we're taking all that into account,
Yeah,
which is nice. So we're ready for our, lab experience. And that's kind of what comes next for us.
that's awesome. Yeah, I know you guys are on your way for sure. Well, you've kind of expanded a little bit to B2B licensing. What opportunities are you creating for other practices to kind of adopt your protocols and products?
We've actually designed our product set to kind of fit into somebody's practice. So if they're doing telemedicine, more online stuff, we have an affiliate program they can sign up for. And then their client gets a discount and then they get a commission. But if they have a brick and mortar practice where they're directly front facing people, we have a wholesale option behind TrueMedX so they can actually buy it wholesale and sell it retail. That's a better value for somebody who has a brick and mortar. And then we're licensing what we're doing with our bioresonance. And we want to have more locations offering this scan because it's really imperative that we personalize this care for people coming through. We don't want people to take things they don't need, and then we want them to know exactly what their body is going through so they can be more preventative. And so we've got those 3 modalities that we're really focusing on.
Yeah, we're hot looking for, let's say, professional medical to work with. And that might be, from as benign as, hey, sell our products, they really work, to we've got silos of care that we could snap in that are, ubiquitous, like anybody could run the silo of care. So gut health, pain management, things like that. Addiction, we've got programs that we could snap into someone's practice. But then all the way up to, I just wrote a business plan around really marrying kind of our clinic situation with something like direct primary care or something like some of these specialty clinics with kind of a lab manufacturing kind of in the middle of that. But again, if you think about like, direct primary care right now is just one step away from holistic and supplements. And so, if you had a direct primary care situation where you were taking care of those people nutritionally, they're going to be a lot less sicker. If you're making your own supplements, again, you're not sending people out the door to buy prescriptives or other vitamins and stuff. You're recognizing revenue on that. And if you've got a lab in the middle, a diagnostic lab, again, you're not sending people out the door for blood tests and all that. All that fits our purposes really well because our big picture is to try to prove out what we're doing as real medicine. So we have patents around what we're doing as far as natural products, and showing that those work in a clinical environment is super valuable and beneficial to us. So the more we can spread our wings out, the better. And I would say if you're interested in what we're doing, let's have a conversation because there's lots of different ways you can configure kind of what we have into a practice or whatever. So yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember my grandma growing up using all type of holistic methods. And now it's filled with skepticism
Yeah.
and disbelief, and it's just gone backwards. People don't this is how they did it for a long time.
It's what I've come to realize is that you just, again, there's a way to prove this out. You just have to data drive it. You have to do it like you do, in professional medical. And so that's the situation that we're setting up and kind of what we're trying to do. But you have to have a method of evaluation, you have to have treatment, and you have to have a, method of evaluation to measure, what you're doing. But we're trying to data drive what we're doing. And I don't know that anyone has ever really done that in the way that we're doing it ever, So, but that's kind of what we want to do. So we want to prove it. We don't want you to take our word for it. If you come see us or you try our product again, they're going to work for you. You're going to be an advocate. But I want to be able to prove that in hard science. And that is where we're headed. So,
That's
yeah.
great. And there's so many skeptics out there. So I love that you kind of balance, the spirituality side, the science kind, and just really, like you said, you're going to prove it. And
Yeah.
numbers speak for themselves. I mean, results speak for themselves. Your patients are obviously walking, talking billboards. It's amazing for the credibility of your work. So keep up the good work. I love it. For our
Thanks.
audience, we have a lot of clinic owners and operators that are kind of wanting to integrate health and wellness into their practices all the time. If they wanted to collaborate with you, what would be like the initial start? What kind of conversation or what should they have in place before they want to welcome someone new in?
Yeah, so I would just say let's have a conversation because again, that could be anything from they've got a big social media following and presence, so they want to sell our product and be an affiliate for us, all the way to they want to, co-mingle with us in some way, which any of that is fine, and we have a way to do that. But the big thing I would say for a practitioner would be what you're talking about natural products, and I've never been trained on natural products. I don't know anything about natural products. It's so outside of my comfort zone. And we will walk in with SOPs. Here, doc, here's exactly what you do. Here's exactly how you talk. Here's exactly what you're looking for. Here's exactly what this means. So, we're going to walk in with SOPs and make sure that that physician or chiropractor or naturopath or whoever it is comfortable doing what they're doing, and we'll support them, on the back end always. So if they have questions, we're always kind of right here to help. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And we offer training every 2 weeks. We offer live training by Zoom with all of our wholesale partners and our affiliate partners. Most of the affiliate partners are kind of doing their own thing. So it's usually the wholesalers who join these calls, but it's a great way to keep up on the new information because Chip is always researching and we're always learning new ways to use the products and understanding what they're doing for people. And so that training aspect, I think, is a big value for everybody.
That's awesome. Well,
You know,
for
it,
our listeners, that are wanting to get a hold of you, what are some ways that they can get in touch to both your practice and to become an affiliate or to integrate your methods into their practice?
We actually have two different websites, so they can always just email me or call me directly, Cindy at neighborlywellness.com, or they can go to TrueMedX.com, TrueMedX.com, or neighborlywellness.com. And so from TrueMedX, they'll find Chip Talks Health podcast. They'll be able to sign up for an affiliate. They can sign up to be a wholesaler. From Neighborly Wellness, they can actually learn more about the bioresonance. And if they want to adopt that into their practice, then that would be a good way for them to kind of learn about that so we can set up that discovery call and learn more about what they want to do and kind of develop that partnership.
I love that. Well, Chip and Cindy, thank you so much for sharing your story and your insights. Such a powerful conversation about blending science and innovation and wellness. For our listeners, thank you so much for tuning into my podcast. But please, please also tune into Chip's. You will learn so much about everything that you need to know about health and wellness. And he is a world of knowledge. And Cindy, I'm very looking forward to working with you in the future, helping you guys get these amazing ideas and innovations and science backed, proven things into other people's practices. So, thanks again for everybody tuning in to the Aesthetic and Wellness Edge. Don't forget to leave a review so that more leaders in the space can discover these type of conversations. Until next time, I'm Bethany Gifford, building smarter, stronger, and more sustainable practices. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.